Kunpo. Hi. Lovely. So have you been having a lot of Zoom meetings, Wayne?
We use Microsoft Teams mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, obviously you have been having a lot of.
Yeah, I know.
Cool. Hi, JD. Delvin from Malaysia. Hi, how are you? Yvette, hello. Lovely. Can't we program it to be auto admit? Why must we keep admitting people? You know what I mean, Daniel? There's a possibility, right? Just to free for all, let people come in.
Can you go to Daniel? You go to security and remove the waiting room.
Yeah,
go. But meaning to say the moment I post up the link, everyone will be in already.
I think we should discuss this after.
Yeah, it's okay, but it's all right. Just saying, it's easier to keep pressing. Anyway, cool. Same deal, guys. Do drop a little hello into the chat and share with us your IG, your website. It's nice to get to know people. Yeah, not only just Wayne and ourselves, but do get to know each other. Because I'm sure, for the regulars who come to our sessions, you will see very familiar names. So it's always nice to maybe even reach out privately or, reach out openly, to appreciate each other's work and what we're trying to do. And, what we're trying to do is to forge a community, right? So that we can all help each other in any form possible, especially during these times, obviously.
Hi, Ian.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ian is on Facebook Live. Okay, so for those who are on Facebook Live, if you want, you can actually join our link, the Zoom link, and then you can come onto Zoom to have a chat with us. You can ask questions directly. You can also turn on your video so that we can see, who's on the other side of the line as well. Yep, come and meet Wayne in person, kind of.
Hi, Iway. I see you're here, Iway.
Hi.
Hi,
Iway.
Hello, long time no see.
Yes. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Hey, you look
Not too
better.
bad. Everything fake, ma. Everything fake, ma. On screen, people look better. You see me in person, which you have for Chuyan.
That was a rough time, man.
Have you seen the TVC that we did?
Yeah, I just switched off my. Hey, Wayne.
Hey, good to see you here. Thanks for your special delivery the other day.
Hey, yeah. Jeff, I haven't seen the TVC yet.
Oh, okay. Then I will find a way to get it to you.
Hey, thanks, man.
Yeah. Still floating. Literally floating, pun intended.
Yeah, I heard about your terrible accident.
Yes, that's what happens when you shoot for 4 days non-stop and sleep 3 hours every day.
That kind of resilience.
Yes. A nice crowd is forming. Lovely. Cool. I would love to check out all your IGs. Let me go, while everyone's waiting, go and check each other's IG out, and as you can see in the chat group, some of you have shared your Instagram feed, yeah? Pierce got a very nice IG feed as well. Lovely work, Pierce. Cool stuff. Oh, you something? Cool. I see you are into mermaids now. Very cool, something. Very cool. Really trippy stuff. Very cool. Good fun. Nice. Well, that's a bit of a specialty now, huh? Very cool. Something. So much mermaid stuff. Very, very enlightening. Very, very interesting. Love it. Cute. Cool. Some more. Any more of you sharing your IG? Come on. Don't be shy. Already. Cool. A nice crowd coming on. Lovely. Hi, Gabriel.
Okay, well, I think everybody's still coming in. We have a little crowd on Zoom as well as Facebook. So we're just going to wait for another 5 more minutes before we start. If you don't mind, you can actually drop your Instagram account onto the chat box so that we can check each other out and then, follow each other as well. Maybe Wayne, you want to drop yours so that everyone can take a look.
Sure. Hold on.
This is our how many episode? Anybody knows? We've been doing this for a good month, haven't we?
More than that, I think.
Slightly more than a month.
Yeah, we started.
5 weeks.
We started in the
5 weeks?
second weeks of the circuit breaker, and then
Okay.
and I think the first 2 weeks or first 3 weeks, in fact, we were doing 3 episodes, 3 sessions a week.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
this is our 20th episode or session.
Wow. Okay, cool. Kind of cool. Very nice. Well, I mean, when you actually say it, it's like, okay, 20 episodes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Very cool.
Hi VJ. VJ's on Facebook Live.
Hey, VJ. All right, guys. I guess for those of you who are new, welcome to Raw. We are a community of photographers. We believe in making the idea of learning photography to be as open and as sharing as possible. That's what we have been doing for the past couple of years when we started. Brian and myself started Raw. So with current situation, we are taking it online, obviously, and we want to continue to do this as much as we can. In the next months to come, before we can finally see each other again. In the meantime, I think today, I think we should start. Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah, let's start.
Yeah,
okay.
let's go.
Okay, man. Welcome everybody. Very very happy to see everyone here tonight. Thank you for your time. As always, we really appreciate your support. Today we have a lovely guest. His name is Wayne. Somebody whom I've had the pleasure and honor to work with when doing shooting commercial stuff. He's a creative director at JWT, and it all came about when I've always been following his work on Instagram, and he's got a very unique eye. Apart from being a creative director, I think he's a very accomplished street photographer. In my view, his taste in the way he frames things, the way he grades stuff, in terms of his street photography is has such a high level of sophistication, and that really drew me to think that his eye is exceptional in that sense. So without further ado, I would love to introduce to you Wayne. Wayne.
Hi everyone. Hope everyone is safe and well. So really thank you guys for spending your precious time to join us in this lovely session. I hope that you would find whatever we are about to share, it's interesting, it's fruitful. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
Not at all. Thank you. Let me share the screen and run your presentation for you. Here we go. Oh, sorry, this thing is in the way. Hang on, one very quick second. Let me move this. Yes, there we go. Super. Okay, Wayne, if you would take it away.
Yeah. So I'm obviously a creative. By all means, I'm not a photographer. I'm just an enthusiast in street photography. So what I've been doing for the last 15, 16 years of my life, I've been in advertising in different agencies, work on different accounts, like automobile, petroleum company, FMCG, milk, supermarket, NTUC Fair Price, courts, all sort of things that that actually like gave me this all these wonderful experiences, and also the experiences to work with like plenty of amazing photographers, specialized in different things. Yeah. So right now I'm with Wunderman Thompson. Previously it was JWT. This is my third time being in this agency. It was my first in the KL office. I'm Malaysian, by the way. The second time in this agency back in 2011, 10, 11. And this is the third time I came back on 2016 until now. So for the last few years, I worked on different kind of projects. One of the few things that I would like to share with you guys is I'm sure you all know that last year was the bicentennial, the Singapore Bicentennial, right? So I was really lucky to have participated, in this creation for a year-long campaign. So one of the pieces that we have done that we really enjoyed is, putting up different statues of contributors to Singapore's history right alongside Stanford Raffles, right? So it was really, really difficult to pull off, knowing that Sir Stanford Raffles statue is such an important piece in Singapore's landscape. But we held on to the idea of there wasn't just one single founder or contributor in Singapore history. We really, really believe in that, and we thought other contributors like Sang Nila Utama, Munshi Abdullah, people like Tan Tock Seng, these people deserve a place in Singapore's history. So we made it happen. These statues, being placed along Singapore River last year from January to December. I'm not sure if any of you have seen it or on the street, but it's definitely one of my favorite pieces of work in recent time, because I think it meant something for Singaporean, is the truth. The truth is there. Singapore is not built by a single man, right? Everyone has a part. So other than that, we also have done up a TV commercial to talk about Singapore's history in 60 seconds, to give people a broader view of what happened since the beginning of time. Really give Singaporean a new perspective of what is Singapore's history. Not exactly like what we have seen or read in our history book, and more importantly, and how do we take all this and look forward? What do we bring to the future? So that is the most important message of this bicentennial campaign, right? Then other than that, we have also worked on a couple of things for the Republic Navy of Singapore. And this is one of the pieces that I really, really like. It's not another 60-second commercial that you see on YouTube or TV about, the LST, the landing ship tank, or, the frigate. It's not about the assets, but it's really about the people in the Navy that spend their day and night looking after our sea, and what comes through, right? They have been protecting it, without us seeing them, but these 4 stories are really, really inspiring stories. We have one of them, started in very early life, dropped out from school, from poly 2 or 3 times, didn't make it, distracted. But then, he spent the next maybe like 15 or 20 years of his life in Navy to get where he wanted to go to. And at the age of 42, he got his degree from NUS, and he became an officer at the age of 43 or 44, which is totally not normal in a naval career, right? So he defies all this defies logic, defies limitation, and he got to where he wanted to. The second story is really about a son trying to carry the father's legacy of a commercial ship captain. So then the third one is about a diver who couldn't even swim when he first joined the Navy, and how he became a proper diver, and who is specialized in air, land, and sea combat. So what are the odds, right? Then the last
But
one
because
is
he cannot swim, right? That's why he became a diver. So yeah.
so yeah, no, because I think in the beginning, when he was doing his swimming test, he was drowning, but it was really his friends, in the team, who really held his arm and say, hey, you have to make it, you have to fight, So from a non-swimmer, as a non-swimmer, he got like really some disadvantage, to his career, but he really went beyond that and became what he is today. Then the last one we have Sam, who is a top scholar in the Naval Academy in the US, came back, did plenty of charity work in the community work. So all these really interesting stories. So we started with like really talking to all these amazing people and try to present their side of the story to everyone, to everyone who is inspired to join the force, right? Rise with the tide.
So the stories were the images were crafted after you guys heard their stories, and then
Yes,
everything was catered to that.
Yes, it's a tribute to all these people, right? So we started by talking to these few people to understand. It was almost like a casual chat, right? So maybe in a cafe setting, we spoke to them um, together. I think then together with the team from the agency, my partner, my copywriter, we spent maybe 1 or 2 hours, to hear about their life stories, then from there, we made it into like almost like a real life stories, in the form of a film, together with two really really amazing directors, Desmond Tan, and Bertrand. I know I'm sure some of you might know them. Like very, very well known name in the industry. So amazing directors. So they were the ones who made this happen. Like great directing. Pull this off in short span of time. The quality is there, the output is there, it's authentic, it's amazingly shot, and the DP as well. Chuck, is one of the DPs, really good guy. I'm not sure if he's in here today. Yeah. So in the end of the day, it's not just about how polished is the work, but these are real stories. These are real people out there. We are not making up stuff. We are not telling fictional stories. These stories, happen, around us. So this is what I like about it. Right.
I think the whole misconception about sometimes creative directors and ad agencies, sometimes people think that you guys do create
Make believe
stuff, whereas here you are telling true stories, and there's so much more heart in it, and there's so many different forms of advertising, isn't it? Right.
But I guess that has also changed along the ways where, because social media and everything became a lot more transparent, and therefore the campaign has moved towards this form, right, as well?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think true stories are always, got a very interesting
compelling
compelling way to connect with people, just because it's real, And when something is real, people know it. When they watch it, they feel it, they know it, they can see it from their eyes, the way they look at, these people being in the film, how their eyes doing the talking, the expression is exactly the same when I first spoke to these people, when they told me the stories, the way I look at them, the way they look at, their eyes, I know that this is real, right?
Okay.
So nothing you can take away from that. Yeah.
Awesome. Moving on to the next slide.
Yeah. So this is another interesting piece that I did. Again, I worked on different things. Throughout my experiences with different agencies. So this is this was actually the first time, you know, I worked on hospitality business, Intercontinental Hotel. So this is actually part of a global campaign about the intercontinental life, right? So it's really about bringing through sophistication in everything that we see around us, right? Like food, art, cooking, culinary. So we have connected with this amazing food critic, Takanori Nakamura. Takanori Nakamura-san is, you know, is like the James Bond of a food critic. You know, he is swag. You know, he's stylish. You know, he got great taste in everything. Look at this. You know, when we saw, you know, the suit that he was wearing. You know, like to the shoot, it's all his own props. Amazing. You know, like the stylist had quite an easy day. You know, even his own, even his own hair. You know, he wouldn't let anyone to touch his hair. He had to style his own hair because he just knew how to do it.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
you know, beyond all this, you know, like the way he got this interesting point of view when it comes to food, when it comes to lifestyle, when it comes to, you know, hotel, when it comes to, you know, things that, you know, he touches every day, you know, like a pot of tea, you know, things like that. So watches, you know, he's got, you know, like a good, you know, collection of vintage cameras. You know, he brought them to the set. Oh my God, you know, those are, you know, like amazing cameras that, you know, that he has. Yeah. So this guy actually, you know, like uh, took on the journey with us, you know, to visit a few places in Singapore to look at, you know, the culinary scene. One of them is the chicken rice, you know, in Chinatown. So it's not just, you know, like Michelin star restaurant. Yeah, so we talk about the food there, talk about how we look at life. So in the end, you know, we had a wonderful film. Perhaps, you know, like perhaps, you know, amazing director again, you know, like made this happen, right? So I will talk a little bit more about, you know, all these experiences a little bit later on about, you know, how we work with photographer, how we work with director, because be it photographer, DOP, videographer, or director, you know, like it's the same thing. You know, I think most importantly, it's about communication, right? So yeah, so these are you know, a couple of things that I did the past couple of years, and so yeah. Jeff, you have anything to add?
Okay, very quickly, I noticed, you know, in this slide, for example, and in this slide, you know, there is a little bit of your sensibilities in terms of your photographic aesthetic, right? You know, especially in this one, you know, I can see this in your IG, for example, in terms of the color, in terms of the, you know, so you know, I can see your aesthetic, you know, being transcending towards your personal works, you know, and then
yes.
You know, transiting into you creative directing your directors and your photographers and your DOPs that you work with, you know, and it all comes together as a team effort, but I can see a certain consistency.
I think, you know, it's really not about you know, who is directing who, you know, because when it comes to working with director, photographer, you know, I worked with you on set before as well. I think, you know, I truly understand that, you know, what makes that, you know, working relationship click is that we have that mutual respect, right? So we are both, you know, be it director or photographer or, you know, whoever, we have mutual respect, you know, we know what each other can bring to the table and, you know, what kind of values that we can add. And the most important part is, you know, we are both parties have to be open enough to listen. So sometimes, you know, whatever the creative say might not be the only way. It might not lead to a solution, but you know, as long as both parties are open enough to listen, you know, and build on it, it might, you know, bring us to a magical place. So back to that intercontinental thing. I was working with Pep Alexander, um, very fun dude. So we were doing a bit of side story here. We were doing recce at this hawker store in Chinatown. So sometimes when I go to the hawker store, I look at all this like food, or like roasted chicken or something, being hung the storefront, and I always have this interesting thought that like how would those hawker uncle or auntie behind the store would look at their customers, when the customers are being amazed by the food being hung there, right? So that is obviously, to me, it's always a very fascinating angle, right? So I told Paps about it. I say, hey, like we have this shot, let's have like Takamura-san walk through like in front of the store, and decide we try to capture him through that few roasted chicken and the glass, right? And to see how he would look at those chickens, because obviously those are very beautiful chicken, beautifully roasted chickens, right? So I was like, oh man, let's try that. So eventually that shot made its way into the final film, and it's one of our favorite shots. So things like that, it's always through our personal experiences, what we find intriguing, and we share it, we communicate it with the photographer, the director, and to see if he would lead us somewhere, right? So things like that. So communication is really key. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's start proper into your how you interact with photographers. For example, we've got a nice community of photographers out there today, who are probably very interested to know, first things first, what is the best way? Let's do it in some chronological sense. What's the best way to approach a creative director with his portfolio? If I'm a new photographer, for example, right? And I'm trying to break into advertising photography. What's the best way you feel? Obviously, you as a creative director, you have your producers, you have your art buyers in your agency who does all the acquisition of photographers based on your brief, right? But that being said, I think you are, of course, you do receive a lot of mailers or cards or emails from young photographers, new photographers. So we love to know how perhaps is the best ideal way that would catch your attention, perhaps.
Yeah. So to me, whenever we needed something to be shot, we have a project, it's more or less set, then obviously, people like producer, would recommend photographers, based on, their expertise, right? So for instance, if we were shooting for lifestyle images, like sports brand, for instance, obviously we would receive similar kind of like genre in a sense, in the form of portfolio through our producer. But I first thing first, I always ask my producer, like firstly, have you if you have not worked with everyone in this list, have you spoke to them, how are they as people, right? So to me, portfolio is most of the time is 50%. Another 50% is really about the photographer's personality, character, like things like that, because mutual respect, it's both way. Collaboration takes, it's a two-way thing, right? So then after that, second thing is we would look at the portfolio itself, right? So subject to the job's requirement. So if the genre is right, if the portfolio is right, then we would definitely look at look forward to maybe have I'm sure you know well, let's have like informal chit chat,
Yep.
So, informal chit chat, because to be honest, it's good to speak with, different ones before we make the decision, So just to give everyone a fair chance, especially
Of
young
course.
photographers, because, they have, they are driven, they are, they are ambitious, they have something to bring to the table as well. So, in any way, we shouldn't discard, especially young photographers or someone, who are new. So everyone has a fair chance.
Yep.
So we speak to them, listen to them. So, like, this is my really like, effed up, like, like sketches, or visual or something, but, I would tell them, this is what we are trying to achieve. So, what can you add, right? What is your point of view? How would you express it through your craft, or your vision, or how will you picture them? What's your approach? So we will ask all these questions to get a better understanding. But through that kind of conversation, we will also know, the photographer's personality as well. How driven he is. So yeah, then we'll know. Okay, then I think the third part, like sometimes we would, so if, we have two very driven photographers, good portfolios, sometimes we would go with a little bit, I think instinct is, like one small part of that, that decision making, because, who doesn't love a good working chemistry, right? Sometimes chemistry is a funny thing, right? If we have chemistry on set, means we have it, I blink my eye, then Jeff knows what's up, what I'm looking about, things like that. For example, it's not like I'm blinking to Jeff all the time, right? So things like that. Chemistry is a funny thing, yeah. So that's about it. So this is how we would have that initial chat. Then of course, I'm not going to bore everyone about the budget part, because that is obviously my producers part, right?
Yep.
So then,
but could I ask what kind of portfolios do you like to see, or and also perhaps what kind of portfolios that very quickly turn you off in terms of the way photographers present themselves, for example. As a creative director, obviously you are a busy man, right? You have a whole team of creatives under you. You obviously want to see something and see it fast. In essence, when you are choosing photographers, perhaps, does not get even all the way until where you already invited them in for an initial conversation to pitch, so to speak, right? That is pretty much the process that a lot of us go through as photographers, right? We will get a brief, oh Jeff, here's a visual that Wayne put together. Your producer will then reach out to my producer, and then we will get into a call, and then we will have a little conversation with you, and then you will give me an initial brief. Then from there, I will digest the brief, and then I will pretty much put together a treatment for you. That is that stage where you already see my work. But what if you've never even seen me? I'm new. You don't even know I existed. What would be the case in terms of what would gain your attention? How can I, in that sense, for example?
Okay, I think when it comes to like someone who is completely, I wouldn't say new to the industry, but new to a working relationship. That means I have never worked with this photographer before. First thing I would look at in that like 10 slide, for instance, PDF or portfolio or website. Is there consistency in quality, right? So if if we have 2 slides, well, amazing photograph, but the slide, a bit not too sure. Then for the 4th slide, so inconsistency is something that would make us worry a little bit. So for instance, I understand that some some photographers might want to give or present variety, variety to show how versatile one could be, in the body of work, right?
Mm.
But I always thought, if it's a case of variety and versatility, I think, we can always like categorize them. If this the first section is about, about something about automobile, for instance, then the style, the unique interpretation of automobile photography from that photographer must be consistent. Then if a second section is about something that that photographer would or explore, uh, something that he did, as a side project or personal project, then that belongs to a different section. So don't mix it up, because I think that is very important, because ultimately, it'll be a bit easier for us, to know exactly what we are looking at in the portfolio. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay, Brian, do you have any questions? I mean, you are one photographer, I know, trying to come into the commercial scene, perhaps.
Well, it's always difficult at the start, especially when I have like 10 years of experience shooting as a photographer, but 0 years in the commercial advertising world. So, how do I even get started? I understand that, test shoot is one way to go, but does uh does does test shoot, what is the level of quality you guys want to see in a test shoot that, that translate back into potentially getting a job, a real job? Yeah.
Okay, so we all know that sometimes what we see in a portfolio
Mm-hmm.
might not be like 100% what we get, because every shoot, from your experience, every job that you have done, they came with different circumstances, right?
Yeah.
You get what I mean? Uh, then, but I think I think as creatives, we all know to how to spot, like, or how to look at, like, the good things, like what, for example, Brian, you can bring uh to this project. For instance, if if you haven't done much commercial project
Mm-hmm.
in lifestyle shot or whatsoever, but if the way you compile that 10 slides of your portfolio, over there I see consistency of uh, uh, well shot talent. That means good expression. Like be it a wedding shoot or what. It can be a like newlywed couple. It can be
Yep.
a family portrait. It can be travel photography. But knowing that uh, for instance, what we are looking for is like expression is a key thing, in this upcoming shoot. So the way we compile, the way we could compile, that portfolio is make sure good expression, good lighting, good human emotion is consistent throughout, whether it's commercial work or not.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think as creatives, I think we won't be making that judgment too quickly. Hey, hey, this is not even this is not commercial. No. Let's like look at the next PDF. No, we won't do that. I mean,
Okay.
I think most people won't do that. I myself, I won't do that, definitely. But I can't speak for all. Yeah. But I think it's good to have.
Yeah, it's also times are changing, right? In a sense, today there are so much more photographers for you to pick from, and there are a lot of photographers today are also in many sense amateurs who have a perhaps very good eye, or your Instagram photographers, and so on and so forth. So comparing creatives today and maybe creatives 15, 20 years ago, hiring photographers, I believe, okay, don't quote me on this, but I believe creatives are looking very differently at photographers today. Last time, perhaps, 15, 20 years ago, creatives would definitely need a photographer who has done commercial jobs before, because, that skill set of executing commercial jobs are very different from today. Today, photography is executed on a very different level.
Yeah,
you know what I'm trying to say, right?
Yep.
A lot of photographers can, but perhaps it's also the sign of times changing, because today photography is all about realness, about that that not overlit look, that very reportage look, perhaps. I don't know. You know what I mean? Whereas last time it was different. Last time commercial photographers had to light the fuck out of everything.
Yes.
And then everything is so overlit. But that is the trend, perhaps, right? So I think you guys are looking at also very different way in terms of selecting photographers.
I think it's really it's subjective to what kind of project that we are looking at. So for instance, if we are looking at creating a set of stills, from the films that we are going to produce, like let's use examples, right? Like Intercontinental Hotel, right? So we need it to be a bit more like stylish, definitely don't want it to look like calm or anything. So natural light, things like that, a bit of flair here and there. So of course, I would look at, photographers who could, deliver that kind of like aesthetic, in the work. Whereas, if I look at FMCG, of course, I want the boy to be super well lit, the milk glass to be like for the the highlight to be like to be inch perfect, the milk no bubble, that kind of thing. So I think different project would definitely require different set of requirements. So as long as when photographers before they even compiling portfolio, or and send it over to the producer, make sure maybe to really understand what is the nature of the project first, then then you have a better idea of what kind of things to compile, because these days a lot of photographers, they are pretty versatile, they have all sort of work, they have done this, they have done that, they have tried different things.
So it's about relevance, isn't it? It's about
definitely
showing the right thing at the right time, to the right creative, on the with the right brief. Right. Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
So if if you're not sure, always check with the producer first. Can you tell me roughly, or briefly, what the job is about? What is what's the product? What's the campaign about? If the producer is not clear, we will always speak to the producer and tell them, okay, this is a summary of what we are trying to do here. Based on this, maybe look for suitable photographers.
Yep. Okay. So Wayne, do you have any tips for example, because a lot of photographers, the new ones or young ones, don't have a direction to go. That's why you see a lot more variety that one person is doing. In fact, your sense of aesthetics has been always there for a long time, and the new guys have no idea the aesthetics as well, the consistency. So how do we go about from the very baby step? What would you advise for them to actually get on to building their most
portfolio,
decent portfolio, like a decent portfolio? Yeah.
I guess first and foremost, I think young photographers, I can't say because I'm not a professional photographer, right? But but if you if I try to make a living being a photographer, I think I'll be half dead already. So
not true. I mean, looking at your Instagram, looking at your Instagram, I don't agree to that.
But
let's talk about it later.
but I guess it's really about if someone is going to pursue a career as a photographer, first and foremost, they need to understand their own voice. What kind of aesthetic language that they want to pursue, or they want to be what kind of aesthetic language that they wanted to be their voice, through the camera, through the lens, through their vision, right? So like a very good example, Jack's work he did many different things, but there is, such a high level of consistency when it comes to, like the level of refinement in everything that he shoots, right? The smallest details you can see, the way he lit the smallest things, not even the bigger object, smallest object, things like, like eyebrow, eyelid, things like that, that cable on that earphone, that little details on the phone, that button, so the way he lit, the way he threw light, the level of details, has been the consistent, if I'm right, has been the consistent elements of, how I look at Jeff's work. So that's his language, right? So, but having said that, having a consistent language doesn't mean that, a young photographer can't be versatile, right?
Mm.
To me, that language can be universal, whatever genre that he's going into, like if it's really about high level of details, be it shooting earphones or shooting automobile or car or truck, it will apply the same principle, right? So what is the set of principles that a young photographer would want to apply, in his work? So to me, that is something that that can think about.
I love that. I think that's very, very helpful. I mean, when we share about photography and we help our young photographers, we always talk about creating consistency in your work, curating your work, always showing your best work, and so on and so forth. But I think you articulated it very well. You need to find that one universal thing or two universal thing that resonates with you, that you can then go obsessively about in your photography, that will then somehow along the way in your career develop into your aesthetic, which is something that you can own. What I mean?
And I guess the experimental stuff can come from personal work as well. That means that do more personal work to cater for, the other part of things that you wanted to try, but you can't get in a job, or you haven't got in a job yet. I would think.
Yes, definitely. I think you're right. I think it happened. I think there were a couple of times that we were looking at different portfolios from photographers, experienced ones, young ones as well. Then I'm not saying those are not good, but we were looking for something specific, right? But then somehow we managed to see something in this person's portfolio in that personal section, that hey, for instance, this guy has been doing product, most of the time, but I didn't know that, we didn't know that, he shot, people as well, things like that. So, but it just appeared in his that personal work section, in his portfolio, and we managed to, hey, this is like exactly what we are looking for. I think it happened to us before. So if you want to explore something else, other than your usual genre, I would, as a creative, I would totally encourage that, because you will never know, one day it might land you an opportunity or something. As long as you are doing it for this for the interest of the love of photography itself, not just about getting job, because whether like someone can truly connect to his work, I think we all can always we can always see it, we can always see it.
I like that. I think you're right on that note. I think a lot of young photographers, they go out chasing or create a what they think is a relevant portfolio, and they try to over commercialize it, to the point where they lose the soul, right? right?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
like you said, Wayne, like you said, you are so experienced. You have seen, you have worked with some of the best photographers in the business locally and internationally over your career. You've seen through it, and you being so trained, because you do this day in day out. It's about creating good imagery in your campaigns that you create. You have a very high level of, in terms of your eye. Your eye is very, very high level already, right? So
Quite small.
yeah, but at the same time, when a young photographer comes and they don't meet your high level of aesthetic, that's when you go, okay, next. You know what I mean? Right? In some ways. So I think photographers need to start bringing that their A game and create a portfolio that maybe perhaps feels a little bit more personal as well. Wouldn't you say?
Definitely, because I think let me just share this little experience with you guys. I think sometime last year at some point, I was looking for a pickup shot photographer, alongside the main photographer, to go to the farms in Netherlands or something. So my producer sent me a couple of portfolios, then Dutch guys. So this guy, I think 90% of his portfolio he shot, like dirt bike, but he always got this like interesting angles, uh, when it comes to shooting all those like, like dirt bikes, in the countryside or something. Very interesting angles, very dynamic. So I would, oh, I would, imagine him, like if he's on set or something or on location, he would be, like rolling himself on the floor trying to get the angle, like very active guy. So saying, hey, this is interesting. He should be quite a fast guy, very aware of, the surrounding, and because we need a good pickup photographer, right? So when I do get to meet him, he is exactly how I imagine him. He is, like a Dutch Jackie Chan or something. He would jump on top of a truck, try to get that shot, then next second roll on the floor. His pants are all dirty, all action, I tell you. And he's always smiling, So he's like a stuntman more than a photographer. So that's why I said, if you truly believe in something, if you have that unique voice or language in your work, people can see it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. That's cool. I think,
Yeah.
Okay. Brian, any other questions there?
Well, seeing that you have experience with a lot of photographers, what are the, maybe bad experience that you had with the photographers that, puts you off? For example, someone with no very little experience, but at the same time, didn't behave well on set, or how should someone
think-
new work with the big boys? Yeah, I mean, I'm
I
sure
think,
you guys are the big boys, right? Yeah.
I think, I was lucky enough, like not to have any like really bad experiences, so far,
Oh,
with
that's very
photographers,
lucky.
Yeah, was quite lucky, like I think locally, I with people, like experienced one, like Duo, like very chill guy, Jeff himself, yeah, all these amazing photographers. But I do see, like different ways of working with these people, So but they all have different different, I would say, approaches, different characters, and I think one thing is, like, but what is, like common within these photographers that when the creators go into the set and have kind of a high expectation, because we have to be, we have to have that, because if you don't deliver, we are done.
Yeah.
So, but one thing common about the photographers that I work with is that like when we have all this like kind of high expectation, that expectation is even higher than the creative. That would really help, because it would allow us to push and drive each other, to make the work better. For instance, like 50 shots. I think like I think we got the shot. We have the safeties. We got the shot. But like sometimes this photographer will say, no, let's try another 20. The talents are still quite energetic. We have time. Then, or for example, if you're shooting still life, product or 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 physical object, like the lighting is good. They spend like 2 hours, to lit the set. Lighting all good. Look at the shot, perfect. We still have time. Let's try to light it another way and see where we go. So they have really high expectation of everything as well. Even higher than what we expected. So that would help us. Like then it will push us and say, like, oh, hey, the photographer is going to try something else, trying to push this. How can the creators contribute to that? Right. So I think it's a very good working relationship, when we work with this kind of photographer. So I think that's useful.
Okay.
I think it will only, like benefit the end product, which is the work itself, right? Yeah.
Yep. So Gabriel has a question. Have you ever taken a risk on a photographer that really paid off? And then, what compelled you to take that kind of risk? Yeah.
Risk, I think I wouldn't say, it's 100% risk, but it's always calculated risk,
Yep.
right? So we know that, like for instance, Mr. A is a photographer. For instance, if he hasn't done much or he hasn't worked much with talent before, if he's a product guy, but then he is just so enthusiastic about shooting talent. He's done plenty of personal work with people, with human. So he have very interesting points or values to add in the initial meeting. So okay, let's go with that, and like let's try, because because I can be certain that to compensate the lack of relevant experiences, his enthusiasm is there
Yeah.
to make sure that like the chances of us fucking it up is pretty low, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because
Nice.
even the
Yeah.
photographer himself will want to exceed the expectation so that he may be
Correct.
considered for the next job again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That's
was like,
true.
look at this guy, like he won't, until he got the shot. I don't think he won't make it happen. He he won't finish the shoot. He won't finish the shoot as as a loser and tell me hey, Win, sorry, I don't think I can do it. Because I believe every artist has pride. If you're trying to be an artist without any pride, without any ego, maybe should think twice about it, because sometimes these are the traits that keep us going, and to make us deliver the good stuff. So yeah.
And I guess obviously it's advertising in Singapore, at least, is also a very small industry. When somebody fucks up or didn't delivers, I think it's a bye-bye career kind of thing, no?
Yeah, I know.
Ban, I'm not going to use you ever again. And then if my juniors or another agency creative director ask me, hey, maybe not lah. I think the stakes in commercial photography is so high, because we are dealing with big brands, we are dealing with big budgets, and So there's almost zero failures in what we do, isn't it?
Yeah. Especially these days, we have, limited budget, but the expectation is higher than ever, so the stake is even higher. How do we make every cent count, and show it the work, so things like that. So if we have, 10 minutes more to play with, how do we, effectively spend the remaining 10 minutes to make the work even better. So, the tension is always like very high, it's a very stressful environment. So, in that kind of environment, the more we need to deliver, right? Yeah. So I think as a young photographer, I think it's important to, to try to deliver, and, because if you don't, then sometimes we might not get a second chance, because, like, it's to be very, very honest with everyone here, is very, very competitive out there, right? So but having the right attitude, having the drive, and having pride in your work is always a good first step. Yeah.
For me, I always feel like, when I hire when a creative director hires me, I always feel a great responsibility towards satisfying and doing a damn good job and making that creative director happy, primarily because, number one, he stuck his neck out to say, Jeff is the photographer, we are recommending him, he is the one that can do the job. So you literally, by doing that, stuck your neck out to tell, let's say, Coca-Cola, and said to the Coca-Cola executives, yes, Jeff is the one that can do this job. You should hire him because we recommend him, right?
Yeah.
So if I don't do my job and live up to that, I feel I have let you down. You know what I mean? And for me, that's the way I approach every single shoot. It's exactly that, right? And from there, that's how, I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
Go ahead.
not just, not just, not letting, the creatives down. I mean, that partially, yes, but I think more importantly is, like, if we do not deliver, sometimes maybe a good idea is wasted because it's not being shot properly, it's not being executed properly, the potential is not being fulfilled, then an idea is, is dead, and it's such a waste. So ultimately, I think we owe it more to the work than anything else.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, we have one more question from Gabriel as well. So he's asking, do you prefer, like, specialized photographer, or someone who is a more all-rounder, or for example, a photographer who does video and TVC at the same time, directing? Yeah. So I think, let me guess your answer. I think just now you made a very good point of someone who shoots pickup. You're looking for someone who shoot pickup at the same time he was shooting dirt bike. So he and this guy has got amazing energy and also amazing angles and things like that. So if, let's say, for someone who shoot fitness, a fitness campaign, you potentially will go to this guy again, even though he shoots dirt bike, because this guy has got amazing angles and energy, potentially, right?
Yeah.
Is there a chance that will happen?
Sorry, could you repeat your question again?
So, for example, let's say there's a fitness campaign, and then you have your usual fitness photographer, but then somehow maybe the client is looking for something a little bit different or something a bit more extra. Would you have considered this dirt bike photographer because of his energy and
not necessarily, because I think at the time, I think we have, like a set of challenges that we were working around with, right? So at that point of time, we need someone who is quick. We needed someone who is comfortable with outdoor environment, with dirt, with mud in a farm, who has no issue going around. He won't, like, he won't be cleaning his boots, because he stepped in the mud, and interrupted his shoot or something. No. So that is the kind of circumstances that we had. That's why we got the guy alongside with his energy. But if you're talking about, like shooting a fitness campaign, right? So that might require something completely different, because that might require someone who really know how fitness works, how to direct talent, how to set direct, postures, things like that, expression. So it's to me, it's really subject to the requirement. So it's not like just because that guy has interesting anger and the energy, then it could fit every type of shoot or job or or campaign that we do. Yeah, but having said that, it's really down to this person. For instance, he's quick, he's energetic. Then at the same time, so I work with him. I liked him already. I like working with him. So if I have an upcoming fitness campaign, then I would definitely speak to him. What else could you possibly add to this specific job along beside your energy and your interest, your interesting angle. Then if he has something to add, then yeah, maybe it will work. Of course, like communication is always the key thing. Do not assume, do not judge too quickly, right? Yeah.
Okay. We've got a very interesting segment here that I would love to try out with you, Wayne, very quickly. Yeah. Brian himself is trying to, obviously get into commercial photography. So he hasn't quite pushed himself out there. So maybe he can quickly share his folio with you, and we would love to hear how you perceive him, perhaps, as a case study.
Yeah, just bring it on.
Just bring it on. Be brutal, slap him around, a bit, make him cry tonight.
Now you're putting me in the spot.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm sharing my lifestyle portfolio here. Yep.
So I mean, take for example, this is his rough edit of what he might potentially put into his website. He's still figuring things out, for example. But I would love, maybe from your perspective, Wayne, is to look at this series of pictures and come to some sense of conclusion to what kind of photographer he is, and how would you potentially pair him to a job, for example, if he were to come to you, and present his work to you, for example, open call, right? It's not, nothing specific. He's just doing a hello knock, on JWT's door and say, hi, I'm a new photographer. This is my work. How can you use me? Right?
Yeah. So I'm looking at this group of photographs here. These images. I think to me there is certain level of good thing, that there is a certain level of consistency here that I can see, which is the how you tend to like your talent, the light quality is consistent. Then although like what I said just now, in some of the images here, especially the fitness one, you try to use some like
colors.
Do they still call it color gel or something?
But nowadays it's LED already.
LED, yeah, I know. But then but then yes, but there is a consistent level of that like softness in the way you like your talent here, which is first a good thing, right? Then I think what I would like to see more is that is the expression. I think if you ask me brutally,
Yep.
I think
Bring it on, man. Yeah.
yeah, I think
There's no other way. There's no other way to critique
Yeah.
photographers, and I've always been very harsh with all the photographers,
Yeah.
that we mentor, and it's about giving them the plain reality of things, and then that's the only way they can improve. So bring it on, seriously. Don't feel you will hurt anybody, because I think we all thick skin enough to take it.
Yeah.
Don't hold back. Seriously.
Yeah. No, but when it comes to expression, when it comes to how we position the talent's body, things like that, I think there is room to to improve. Like sometimes I talk to Jeff, like when we shoot talent, things like that, we want to post, we want them to pose, but we don't want them to look like they're posing, because it's a very tricky thing. So obviously, we all know that when we when a photographer like you, when you shoot all this stuff, obviously we need to direct them. But I think like when we get them into a position that you require them to be, I think they could look a bit more comfortable, because I think when they feel comfortable, then the reward will be there, in the pictures. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Anything else would you comment on the way you would perhaps use him, as a photographer? How would you pair him to a job, perhaps? You reckon with this body of work, perhaps? I don't know.
I think
from a lifestyle point of view.
From lifestyle point of view, I think the work here might work for banking. I would say banking is definitely one. Because it's the level of sophistication is there. Lighting is is consistent. It's good. Your images are crisp. It's clear. But I think banking would be a good fit. But I think you can definitely push a little bit, because like if you can bring out like the emotion in your work a little bit more, like the face, the expression, how the body language and all those stuff. Maybe some can be a bit more playful, a bit more energetic. The energy level is higher. Then I think it will definitely open up more doors for you. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, still very posy. I feel as well. Yeah, there's quite a lot of very overposed images. So perhaps that's something. Yeah, I mean, there you go, guys. I mean, if you look at it, creative directors see very different things from us photographers. Sometimes when we see our own work, when we see other photographers' work, we must always put ourselves into the shoes of the people who are going to potentially see our work, and then try and understand from that perspective, what would reach out to him and gain his or her attention, so to speak, right? I think that's a very, very important aspect of presenting your work.
I think one of the things that photographers like generally look out for yourself is that you always worry about lighting, you always worry about composition, and then suddenly when you are so busy with these two aspects, then suddenly the posing and the expression just went out.
Yeah. So maybe I'll just I'll give you my 2 cents, like a few examples here. So if you look at the guy with that boxing gloves here, with the red boxing glove, yes, this one, right? So I think what maybe to you is about that soft light, that coming from the from the window, the body posture or something. But like sometimes we look at this and ask, like, what is this guy is trying to do here? He is boxing, yes, obviously, because he's got the gloves on, right? But when he is putting up, when he's showing his fist, is he thinking about fighting someone? What is he thinking about? Is he thinking about throwing in a heavy punch, or is he imagining a competition in his head? So it's that kind of like emotion that we want to bring out in this photograph would definitely help, because right now, if I look at this, I get that he is throwing a punch, but is he fighting internally, for example, or is he imagining a competitor,
It's a
or
bit
is he
blank.
practicing, or is he perfecting that punch, or what? I don't see it there yet. Yeah. As an example,
Yes.
like just like the guitar, the guy playing that musical instrument, what kind of song is he playing it for his girlfriend, for his loved one, or for his family, or what, or is he playing something that his dad used to play? So it's the kind of like the emotion that we're trying to bring across. I think it can definitely be to be brought out a bit more here. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, that's how
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
look at all this. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
No
Okay, Brian, if you could stop your share, let me do. Let's now start to get into the interesting bit. Okay, here's where I would love to talk about you, about your work, about you, the photographer. I mean, I've been following you for a while. In your early days, in your Instagram, I didn't really notice your work. It was just street photography. But after a while, I start to go, wow, you are building this really amazing sense of observation. What I've noticed about your work is you have this amazing sense of observation in terms of how light falls and how you capture all these very spontaneous scenes. Like this, for example, the guy in the foreground, the guy in the background, there's a lot of depth in your pictures. This one, for example, and this one, for example, very intrigued about your process. I would love to hear a lot more about how you approach your street photography. Perhaps by way of the gear, by way of how you capture your moments, etc.
Yeah. So thank you very much. For your for your words.
Wow.
I'm I'm just, to be honest, I'm just like yeah. I think, Jeff, you got the right word, observation, right? So I think how I got this thing started is that if you look at what we have been doing, in our day job, advertising, commercial environment, it's basically every one of us is trying to orchestrate multiple factors, with high complexity, right? To make a perfect moment, to engineer that, right? So that's what we do, we want to engineer something, but we want to make it, not doesn't look engineered, right? So, be it, we try to manipulate time, like weather, lighting, pattern, movement, composition, expression, all this stuff, that's what we do, right? On set. But, like some time ago, I just realized that, this universe, is actually the master of this orchestration, right? And we could actually witness all these magical moments that we are trying to create in a commercial world, that they're actually around us, if we observe, we have, if we have good enough of observation here. It's these things are happening around us. For example, that magical moment when the light falls on something, someone at the bus stop, or the stars, literally align, in the night skies. These are things that like we didn't engineer them, but it just happened. So that actually got us into like really like start to capture all this,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and to it's a way of remembering all these like things that like we are trying so hard to recreate in our work, but sometimes it just happens. So I think to me that's the I'm not saying these are beautiful, but to me that's the beauty of doing these things, right? It's just so organic, it just happens. Right. So and another thing is it's always a great way to observe what is happening around us, and to me it's not just a creative outlet. To me it's both a creative outlet and a creative inlet, right? Because the moment when we start like paying attention to things that happen around us, we would find out about things. We would learn things. We would learn about like
sorry, Wayne, we can't hear you. We lost your audio. Brian, can you hear Wayne?
No, cannot. I think you have to switch, maybe turn off your Bluetooth, and then because I think your mic is picking up, maybe your battery went flat.
No, still can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
Is it?
Can you hear us, Wayne?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We can hear you. Sorry.
So I was saying, this is not just personally, it's not just a creative outlet. To me, it's both an outlet and an inlet, because by observing all these things that are happening around us, we would learn, how, for example, how a frightened person would look like, how an angry person would look like, how an upset person would look like, or how like the wind could interact with the leaves, for example. There are plenty of things that we can observe out there, and to learn about the interaction and the relationship of everything, not just human being. So to me, that's that's the interesting part, and I'm obviously not doing this to become like a photographer or something.
Yeah, smart. You're very smart. Python.
Yeah. But to me, it's a process
but at the same time, yeah. I mean, for you say all these things about your own work. I think you're being too humble and nice. I mean, as much as you say this, about your work, what I find very fascinating about your style, your approach, is the fact that yes, these are all street moments, these are all uncrafted moments, but you somehow manage to craft it. It is, to me, so fucking crafted. So tight, your vision in terms of just look at this picture, for example. Right, there's this blurring here of the depth of the outside of the umbrella, and then here you've got all these bouquets on the foreground, and it frames him in the middle, and then this line runs across this circle right smack, and it's like, wow, it's like you're almost art directing a street, but it's actually a snap, but yet it's so real, and yet it's so put together. I cannot even imagine to start articulating what you're doing with your street photography, and to me that's the excitement of what I see.
You make me want to go traveling with you, just to see how you shoot all this.
Exactly. Really, I mean, yeah, it's like, you know, I mean, okay, wait, let me go back to some Singapore ones. I saw some girl in Wisma Atria, right? I mean, you
while you're
managed.
looking at it, looking for it, maybe
Yeah.
someone's asking, name 2 lenses that you use for your street photography. I understand you're using Fujifilm, so what lens do you use?
I think I primarily use a 56, a very tight lens,
Okay,
because to
that's
me,
about 85, right?
yeah, about 85 on crop sensor, because while I trying to like snap all this stuff, I try not to interrupt people, interrupt their way of life. I try to be like almost invisible, right? I don't want to be someone who look like like an tourist, like snapping my way to everywhere, So so that's why I always like 56, and at the same time I like that because it gives me so much more focus to my subject. Yeah.
I mean, look
That's
at this. This is Singapore, right? This is like bloody Wheelock Place,
Yeah, it's outside of HSBC.
Yeah, exactly. And you managed to make it look like, Portugal. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's your observation of light, and then the way that light kind of cuts off at his calf with that little bit of shadow, and then there's that edge of a lamppost or something there, that you framed. This is just, to me, impeccable.
But because of it's a different guy. But if Jeff, if we have to put you in there with your slippers, I think it will still look like Singapore. Right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can't run away from me. Looking very Singaporean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and you can tell us about your process when you're shooting. You said you use a long lens, yes.
Yeah.
And do you consciously frame and go behind something, and then or it's something where you shoot off the hip and then you feel things, yeah.
Usually I would, find somewhere to hide, so that people won't see me, to begin with. If it happens on the street, I would hide myself to be hidden. Then normally I would start pre-imagining the framing, with things around me, what's in the background, without pointing out the camera until to a point that I say, hey, maybe we have something here, then this is a good spot to hide, optimal spot to hide, good framing. Then I will start anticipate things to happen, then I will see, hey, there's someone coming,
with an umbrella
towards my direction with something interesting. Then I'll look at, hey, like the light is good at the spot. Yeah, so I will, usually I will just, like have all these things in my head. Then when I see the timing is right, usually then I will just, like I'll bring up my camera. I will just like have a few shots while pretending to dig my nose, and wipe my face, things like that. Yeah. So then I'll just, immediately I'll just look at, look to another direction, pretend that I'm looking at something else. So that's what I do. That doesn't include that, all those pictures that of my girlfriend, obviously, no hiding in that. Yeah.
Notice something, earlier on you spoke about consistency. Yeah, I mean, we notice a lot of consistency in you, especially the way you shoot the subjects, even though everything is like journalistic, it's like the lighting is consistent, the umbrellas are kind of consistent there as well, and then the isolation of subject with foreground and things like that. Yeah, all these are very, very consistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I think, some of them, is some of them is really, applying, like what I've learned, from my work as a creative, especially an art person, like uh, the, the principle of composition, for example, you
Yep.
know, then I would. So from there, if I find a good composition, then after that I will find, interesting things that that I anticipate to fall into that composition. Then I will just like snap it or something. And I think one of my like favorite photograph that I took is that if you look at the first row, that lady having that warm cup like warming her face. Personally, I love that very much.
Wow.
The colors and everything. She's cold. The weather was quite chilly. She was trying to use the warm cup to warm up her face or something. But uh, then ironically, the cup color is cool. The shirt color is warm. So to me, I like things like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the juxtaposition of things. Not not so much just a beautiful a photograph. Sometimes it can be quite quirky as well. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I like the one with the left bottom picture beside the old man, where her jacket matches the slide, like similar to the wall and the sky
Yeah.
and the fences. Yeah.
Yeah, I think your color is perhaps what is the binding factor again. You are actually preaching what you have said about other photographers and what you are expecting, and here you are actually preaching exactly what you said. Having that sense of a universal language that binds all your images together. And I think that's what's so appealing about it, because when on Instagram, when I'm scrolling through random people and then your image pops out, I immediately know it's you, just without even looking at at your name. I know it's you, very simply. That's how
Yeah.
how much of a style you have created already. And I'm so, to be honest, I'm baffled. I'm fucking baffled at the fact that you only have 800 followers. Right, guys, please share his Instagram and let's get him the following he needs. All right, because seriously, this guy, I don't know, I'm speechless.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of Instagrammers shooting, street photography, for example. None are as cinematic as what I see in your work. There is a very cinematic approach to your language. So
let's talk about the process of do you most of the time do you wait at a spot for a long time? Because I mean, obviously for you there's a lot of thought process that goes into it, like color, composition, lighting, story element. Then how long does it take for you to get one shot there and then you move off, or will you wait for something better?
Usually I would, if I'm traveling, if we have the luxury of time, then usually we would
I comment the colors.
we would cater, like sometime we'll cater some time, for instance, when we're traveling, we cater some time in the morning, like we try to wake early, go out to catch, the morning sun.
Chase the light.
Nearby, maybe we station at like a few spots, see what we can get, things like that. So in all these like different spots, for instance, near the place that we stay, maybe spend 10 minutes each to see what we can get. If not, then we move on to the next place. So I think when it comes to traveling, so this is kind of our habit, then, but if it's Singapore, then like when I wasn't like so busy, I would actually bring out the camera along, bring my camera along to places that I go to. Then if I see something, I just snap. Sometimes I didn't like really station much.
Yep. Okay. That's interesting.
A very interesting question from Matthew. He notices that you frame things in portrait format. Any particular reason for that? Is that how your eye perceive things? Or is it for continuity in your feed?
Or do you crop? That means that sometimes maybe you shoot landscape and you crop.
I actually, like these days, I don't really shoot horizontal format. I would shoot portrait because, somehow, like maybe due to my work, the how my brain, like wire
print is vertical.
Yeah, exactly. A space is A4. A4 is vertical. So when that instinctive part kicks in, like what you say, actually sometimes I didn't plan that much, like not as much as you would, analyze it, I would say, but sometimes it's just like really instinct, but that instinct, that framework of, that instinct is actually in that freaking A4 format, somehow it's in, it's it's in here,
But I think another thing, when Matthew asked that question and when you were explaining that, something came to me actually when I was just scrolling. It actually works to your advantage because in street photography, people are walking, people are standing. Right? And that allows you to frame like that. You know what I mean? It allows you to do, moments like this beautifully, and there's lampposts, there are fences, there are walls, and they're all very vertical.
I noticed this thing as well when I was traveling because these days all my travel pictures are shot vertically. I do not take any more travel pictures that are horizontal. Because one thing was a change in IG story. That means that I don't post on my feed, I post on IG story. So I need it to be 16:9. That's one. Then I realized that actually I see a lot more things and it's cleaner because it's vertical.
Yeah.
But
I think, I'm not saying that horizontal is, is
of course
it's not nice because, I've seen, like some really good street guys on IG, like I'm not sure if you follow his or her Monaris, he or she would he or she would composite, like 3 horizontal shots, to tell a story or something. Beautifully done.
Also very cinematic.
I think, horizontal could tell as much story as vertical, I think it's just a matter of preference. But I think to me, maybe, one advantage of, going vertical is that there is, like what you said, maybe there is more space for body language. Especially if you're using like a long lens.
Lovely. Okay. Questions. Chong, just a quick question. Since everyone is showing their work digitally, I'm wondering if printed portfolio are still being used. Do you see printed portfolio as a creative director?
Very unlikely these days. Everything is digital. I think it's all about convenience and like speed. Time. We have 15 minutes to look at like a PDF or something. So I think digital is obviously has its advantage. But when it comes to a printed portfolio, if we were to meet that that photographer in person first time, I'm sure as hell it's a good talking point. Because the quality of like images being printed on paper, it is still something to be admired. We're not discarding the analog quality of like images on the analog surface.
Okay. So Chong, save money, don't print. For now. Yeah, certain countries still appreciates, the printed portfolio. I guess it's country to country as well, but I think I would say a great percentage is still in the soft media, right? Okay. Matthew has another question. What kind of projects do you hire them for? Digital projects, print? Oh, sorry, wait, hang on. No, his question is, have you reached out to any photographers directly via IG and hired them for projects?
Yeah, I did. I wouldn't say, I hired them directly, of course, that it's a certain process, in our work environment, but if I do notice, someone with like really interesting work, really good work, on IG, I would first thing first, like forward it to my producer, like ask him or her to check, if this person is, first available, secondly, where is he based, things like that, or does he do commercial work? So, my lovely producer would actually help out with all this to contact, the photographer and to get things going, see, if that person is available. Yeah. So in a way, we do look for photographers with, that fits, like our requirement in IG, yeah.
Okay. And what are your thoughts about photographers reaching out to you on IG and showing their work, for example? How do you feel about that?
To me, like I personally, I use IG. I don't really, use IG much, for that purpose, because as much as I wanted to keep it as my personal platform. It's really about connecting with other people who loves, like snapping some pictures, and to admire people's work, things like that,
Right.
So to that question, no, but to your previous question, yes, I do stalk photographers, see, if I could, like get them to do, like
Right.
commercial job or something,
Of course.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see. Michelle, what are some of the ways photographers have reached out to you to intro themselves? What would you recommend a photographer could do to share their work?
I think social media is definitely, a good platform to showcase, showcase your work. So, but another thing is, like another way is, start building connection, because Jeff, I'm sure like, well enough, to to have a as a photographer, to have a career in commercial connection, is is important, like producers, agency friends, like introduce, like if you don't know them, if you have friends who know them, like get them to introduce you, have a chat, like share your work or something, that would be good, because you would never know, like when would these people would actually call you up, or contact you, or the producer. So if there's any opportunity to be in a socialized event with these people, like join, like forum talks, workshop, things like that, that would be good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Alternatively,
Maybe...
all of you can follow him now on IG. That's a good start.
That gives me a lovely idea. Perhaps later, when things eases up and so on and so forth, we could create portfolio presentations and then bring agency people, to come and do a little bit of a shindig where we can mash people together. That could be something fun, I guess. You can meet new talents and they can meet creatives and so on and so forth. Perhaps that's something that we could potentially do. We think that would be something that could be useful for you, Wayne.
Yeah, definitely.
Free booze, maybe we can arrange things like that. Perhaps that's something that we could do for the community and to bring people together. I think I think that inspired me to create something. So since that's what you feel is a great way. Let me ask you another question, perhaps. Very, very simply, do you think the old ways of promoting oneself, I mean, for photographers, for us, it's always about self-promotion. How do we promote ourselves to creatives like you, right? The classical way of promoting oneself was previously to print com cards, to print small little posters where we mail to you, and then you will get in your mailbox, and then you will see my work on the little print of sorts, or a couple of prints in an envelope, for example. That's one. That is the classic way of photographers promoting themselves. Second way is photographers mounting a unique campaign unique to them. So for example, I might put a couple of prints into an envelope, and then this envelope I put into a basket, and this basket has a box of cookies, and then I mail it to Wayne, and said, hi Wayne, I'm a new photographer. I hope you enjoy my homemade cookies, but these are some of my photography. I hope to work with you sometime, things like that. That's mounting a more unique campaign to stand out from the other mailers that come through your door. So this cookie photographer actually stood out from the rest, for example.
Hey, there's another way. You wrap a USB drive with $100 note. You tie it up.
So
maybe if you do that, it will never get to me. You'll be stuck at the reception, and that's it,
Okay. What do you think those traditional ways of promoting oneself still applies? Do you still receive such things?
No, I think these days, I don't get much mailers anymore. Printing cost is one factor. But I do notice that these days, quite a lot of young photographers, young artists, that would actually do things like to hold their own little exhibition, like their personal project, in an art space or something, or sharing with someone, a little event, things like that. So those are things that I thought is quite nice, because first you could showcase your work. Secondly, in that kind of setting, it's really about going there to to look at like beautiful photographs, beautiful project, beautiful work, and whoever going there won't be feeling pressured, be it creatives or producer, to that I'm going to see this person, I have to hire him sometime in future, without that kind of pressure in in that kind of setting. So just like gathering, setting, mini exhibition. I think I saw some people doing that, which is quite nice. Yeah. So I think to me that's another like possible way of of connecting people as well. Not just like showcasing like commercial work, but I noticed like some artists that would like have their personal project about with a specific theme. So it's not it's not so much of like portfolio sharing session, but more like like a personal project, little exhibition, something with a specific theme, that to me that's like actually more more compelling as well.
Okay, that's very helpful. Awesome. Okay, any other question, guys? Okay.
I think on my end, someone like
Yeah.
texted me
Yes.
some questions.
Correct.
It's like
Yes,
some
Wayne.
basic question.
Yep.
That person is not here, so
Mm.
he or she would like to hear it
Mm-hmm.
in Facebook later. I think someone mentioned this to you before, not too long ago, but I think I forgot to to talk about it. So everyone asked me, like what's my process when it comes to like what I have on my IG, like when it comes to shooting and stuff. Yes, I actually do not spend much time, like processing all those. I don't even shoot RAW. I shoot JPEG. JPEG straight to phone, VSCO, 10 minutes, 收工. That's it,
Okay.
So I think to me, like it's not, I think as long as you develop an eye for your aesthetic sense, it's not so much about how we process it or to like to trick the colors or something, or to grade it. I'm not saying that like the more serious processes are not important, but if you ask me personally, for my purpose, I think I just do it the simplest way. Yeah, just to answer the question. Yep.
However that works. I mean, if this is essentially your process, and your end game is to put it up on this 2-inch by 2-inch size. You know what I mean? On the phone, and that's your end game. You're not putting it up onto a billboard, onto a poster. So that's your end game. And if it works to that means, to that end, fine, right? The wow factor is still there, so it doesn't really matter how you do it. I think that's also the beauty of today's world, that photography can be consumed at so many different levels. Right.
Definitely.
Okay.
At the same time, because it's so small, things can be shot in a way, in a very dark condition, and then you can shoot ultra high ISO. It's more of getting the moment, getting the aesthetics, and not worrying about too much of technicalities and things like that. Yeah. So I think that's the beauty of photography evolving. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Super. All right, Wayne, it has been very, very insightful. Thank you for sharing with us, what goes on in the mind of a creative director, and sharing your work as a creative director and as a photographer. It has been no, please don't be so humble and shy. Seriously, I'm not trying to kiss your ass, but I know photography, and I'm telling you, this is really good photography when I see one. Or else I won't bring you on. So yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Brian.
Thank
and
you.
everyone else. Thanks for giving me the chance to share the little that I know. I hope to speak to you guys soon, or to meet you guys in person when everything is more or less like more stable.
Thanks to you, Wayne. I think
FaceTime.
Yes, exactly. I think you sparked a lovely idea, and to me personally, I'm hungry to meet people. I'm hungry for human contact. I'm hungry to be in a room with my peers, as opposed to knocking on screens at the moment.
Yeah.
So
I miss our parties at Raw.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we will put together something. This has definitely inspired us to create some gatherings where we can mash photographers and creatives together, and invite monthly sessions like that, perhaps at some point, where we bring in a couple of creatives to meet photographers like all of you. But you guys better bring your A game, all right? Don't fucking bring me some crap work. So do your due diligence, find the time, okay, to go and come up to standard, because you are obviously showing your work to a very competent photographer here as well. So you are not bullshitting anybody, right? We all have to obviously up our game, if you want to to compete at at whatever level it might be, we have to bring our A game. So start planning your portfolio. So once things opens up, we will get Wayne, we will get other creatives down, and then we can start showing our work. How about that?
Yeah.
How does that sound?
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, and I have like a few words for all the young photographers here. I think like before thinking about taking photographs, or color grading it, working with talents and all this stuff. I think one thing that I think would be useful is really to learn how to observe. I think that is like ultimately like very, very important, not just to photographers, to create as well. Like some people observe and document it with a photograph. Some people observe and like write, put it into words. So, but observation is when we actually spend like that few seconds of time to consume what is happening around us. So start paying attention, right? Yeah.
Very, very well said. Thank you,
Yeah.
Wayne. Do take a moment, Wayne, to go and read through the chat. There's a lot of really nice compliments on your work when we started talking about your work, your photography. So
thank you guys. Thank you
take a
everyone.
moment to go and read.
I will.
From
Thank
photographers. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
A very quick brief.
Yep.
To get everybody going about our next session. We have Friday coming up. Now we are going Tuesdays and Fridays. Friday will be a interesting session that we are trying. We want to create a format. For example, what we'll do is maybe tonight or tomorrow, we'll put up a bunch of images. It will be a session by me. So we'll put up a bunch of images that you will then poll. You will vote for which image that I will then take and do a deep dive breakdown into the entire process of creating that image. I will use Set a Light, which is a virtual lighting software. I will literally recreate the whole shoot virtually live online by putting in the light, and then we will light it. We'll move the light around, and at least we can then learn lighting, so to speak, through this new format that we want to explore. So we will also want to make it interactive. That's why we are putting up a bunch of images for you to choose which ones has the highest hit, and then we will use that image and deep dive into that image. Yeah, that's coming up Friday with me. And then thereafter, next Tuesday, we are going to be featuring a very, very amazing New York, LA-based beauty photographer, a good friend of mine, Kurosh Sutade. He's shot for Vogue, for Bazaar, and so on and so forth. We will give you more details. He's obviously based in the US, so he's going to wake up at 5 a.m. to do our talk for us, right? At 8:30 p.m. Sorry, 5:30 a.m. His time, so it's 8:30 p.m. our time. So that's how fucking cool this guy is. He's gonna wake up at that ungodly hour to do our talk for us, okay, to meet our timing. So that's kind of cool. That's coming up next Tuesday. Okay, we will give you more details then. In the meantime, thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Right.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you so much. We'll catch up
thanks,
soon.
Jeff. Thanks, Brian.
Big time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.